Most people in America are burning out, not getting rich. And that's not a coincidence. You've probably heard this all your life. Work hard and you'll make it. It sounds noble. It sounds fair. But let's be real. How many people do you know who work 2 jobs, barely sleep, and still struggle to pay rent? We've been sold this hustle narrative like it's the golden ticket to wealth. But here's the thing. It's not just misleading. It's dangerous. It keeps you stuck in a loop where you trade more of your life for just a little more money and still feel behind. Think about Sarah. She's 38, single mom, working 9 to 5 at an office and cleaning Airbnb rentals at night. She's exhausted, always one emergency away from chaos. She tells herself, if I just keep going, I'll catch up. But the truth? She's not climbing. She's running in place, like trying to win a marathon on a treadmill. Why do so many of us believe this myth? Because it's baked into the American psyche. From kindergarten on, we're told that success is about effort. We idolize grind culture. We look at millionaires and say, they just worked harder. But that's not the full picture. Not even close. The wealthy don't just work hard. They work smart. They buy assets. They build systems. They multiply their time. They learn how money works. And more importantly, how they work in relationship to it. Hard work alone is a trap if it's not paired with strategy, leverage, and a healthy mindset. And deep down, this belief that hard work, and wealth makes us feel morally superior for struggling. Like suffering earns us a gold star. But guess what? The market doesn't reward effort. It rewards value. It rewards impact. And that's why someone can make $80K in a month doing online coaching while another breaks their back, doing construction for $20 an hour. This isn't about shaming honest labor. It's about realizing that effort without direction just leads to burnout. So here's the mindset shift. You don't get rich by working harder. You get rich by working differently, by shifting from labor to leverage, from time for money to value for impact. And here's a practical step you can take right now. Start tracking where your time and energy go each day for 1 week. Then ask yourself, how much of this is producing income, and how much is just draining me? You'll be shocked at the answer. Awareness is the first step toward real change. Let this land. You're not lazy, you're misled. And breaking that lie is the first investment in your freedom. So, take a breath, step back, and ask yourself, am I chasing wealth or just chasing exhaustion dressed up as productivity? Because if it's the second, it's time to rewrite the story. Look, if you grew up believing you're just not good with money, you're not alone. And honestly, that belief didn't start with you. It was planted. Maybe it came from hearing your parents fight about bills. Maybe you watched them stress every time the rent was due or saw them swipe credit cards just to keep the lights on. And as a kid, you absorbed it all without even realizing it. Here's the truth. No one is born with financial intelligence. You weren't supposed to know how to budget, invest, or negotiate your salary at age 10. But somewhere along the line, not knowing turned into a fixed identity. And that identity hardened into shame. Now every time money comes up, it triggers something. Anxiety, guilt, avoidance. You tell yourself, I suck at this, and move on, hoping somehow things will fix themselves. But money isn't just math. It's emotional. It's psychological. It's personal. And the more we treat it like a cold numbers game, the more we push ourselves away from actually healing our relationship with it. You know what's wild? Most schools in America never taught you how to manage money. They taught you how to memorize state capitals and take standardized tests, but nothing about credit scores, debt traps, or building wealth. So if you feel behind, don't blame yourself. The system wasn't built to empower you financially. It was built to keep you operating just enough to function, not enough to flourish. And here's where it gets deeper. When you believe you're bad with money, you start making decisions that match that identity. You avoid looking at your bank account. You delay paying bills. You overspend for emotional relief. You undercharge for your services. Why? Because deep down, you've already decided you're not capable. That's the belief quietly steering the wheel. But let me be clear, this isn't about intelligence. It's about emotional programming. You may be amazing at your job, creative, driven, compassionate. But when it comes to money, you freeze up. Not because you're incapable, but because your inner script says, "This isn't for me." Let's pause for a second. Can you imagine what your life would look like if you actually believed you were capable of mastering money? Like really? Believed it? This isn't about suddenly becoming a finance expert overnight. It's about realizing you can learn, you can shift, you can outgrow the story you were handed. One simple step? Start speaking about money with curiosity instead of fear. Replace "I'm bad with money" with "I'm learning how to make better" financial decisions. It sounds small, but it changes everything, because language is the bridge between belief and behavior. You don't need more shame, you need new evidence. And that starts with letting go of the lie that you're not wired. For wealth, you are. You've just been tuned to the wrong frequency. So the next time your brain whispers you're not good with money, ask yourself, who told me that? And were they even right? Because odds are, they weren't. Here's the shift most people never make because no one ever told them it was even possible. Money isn't evil. It's a tool, and you deserve to use it well. That's a big one to swallow, right? Especially if you grew up in an environment where wealth was painted as something shameful or suspicious. If every movie villain was rich, or your family called wealthy folks crooks or sellouts, it makes sense that you'd subconsciously push money away. Not because you don't want it, but because some part of you is scared of what it might turn you into. But here's what they don't tell you. Money doesn't corrupt people. It amplifies them. If you're kind, generous, creative, money gives you more power to express that. If you're afraid, insecure, or angry, money might magnify that too. But the money itself? It's neutral. It's not the villain in your story. In fact, it can be the vehicle to rewrite the story entirely. Let's break this down with something real. Imagine someone gives you $100,000 tomorrow. How you use it says more about you than it does about the money. You could invest in your community, pay off your mom's debt, launch a business, or blow it all in a weekend. The cash doesn't decide that. You do. So why do we blame the money? It's because deep down, we've been trained to feel unworthy. We say things like, "I just need enough to get by," as if wanting more is greedy. We tone down our ambition to be liked. We avoid charging what we're worth because we don't want to seem too much. And over time, we confuse being broke with being humble, when really it's just fear in disguise. But let me ask you this. What if having more money meant you could finally show up fully for your life, not out of ego, but out of freedom? Freedom to rest. Freedom to create. Freedom to give without resentment. That doesn't sound evil. That sounds like healing. And here's the practical part. If you want to shift this mindset, start observing how you talk about money every day. Kitschfuss. The little jabs. "I can't afford that, must be nice, I'll never be rich." These aren't just words, they're micro decisions. Rewire those in real time. Instead of "I can't afford that," say, "How could I afford that?" It opens a new neural pathway. It triggers problem solving, not self-sabotage. Another thing, look at who you spend time with. Are you surrounded by people who see money as dirty or as possibility? Because energy is contagious. You can't rewrite your money story if you're stuck in someone else's script. It's not about becoming obsessed with money. It's about removing the emotional blocks that stop you from even engaging with it. Because if you secretly believe that money is bad, you will always find a way to repel it, no matter how hard you work or how much you think you want it. So let this be the turning point. You're not bad for wanting wealth. You're not selfish for dreaming bigger. You're not greedy for asking for more. You're just finally done believing a lie. And that, right there, is the beginning of real freedom. You ever wonder why so many people dream of being rich, but deep down feel uncomfortable around wealthy people? It's this quiet tension, admiration laced with judgment. We say things like, "must be nice," or "they're probably shady," without even knowing the person. And that subtle resentment? It's not harmless, it's a belief system, one that's quietly sabotaging your financial growth. If somewhere in your mind you believe that rich people are greedy, corrupt, or selfish, then here's the uncomfortable truth. You will never allow yourself to become one of them. Not fully, not freely, because your brain will always protect your identity. If wealth equals bad, your subconscious will do everything it can to keep you good, even if that means keeping you broke. This isn't about defending the ultra-wealthy or ignoring economic inequality. Let's be real, there are plenty of unethical rich people out there. But there are also unethical broke people. Being broke doesn't make you virtuous. Being rich doesn't make you evil. Money doesn't create character. It reveals it. Think back. Where did you first hear that wealth and greed go hand in hand? Was it a parent saying, "We're not like those people"? A preacher talking about humility and sacrifice? A TV show where the rich villain always got taken down in the end? Over time, these stories stack up and form a belief. If I have too much, I'll lose my soul. But here's the thing. What if being rich actually made you more you? What if it gave you the ability to be generous without going broke? What if it meant you could build safety for your family, invest in causes you believe in, and stop trading? Hours for survival. Let's break a myth. You don't have to choose between being a good person and being wealthy. That's a false dichotomy. It's not either or, it's both. But to get there, you have to rewrite the story. Start noticing the small ways you distance yourself from wealth. The eye rolls at luxury, the jokes about rich people problems, the hesitation when you start making more, that inner voice whispering, "Don't get too comfortable." That's not your intuition, that's conditioning. And if you don't challenge it, it'll keep you stuck. So here's something powerful. Instead of judging wealth, study it. Instead of resenting rich people, observe how they think. Ask better questions. What do they value? How do they make decisions? What risks do they take that I avoid? You can't learn from someone you resent. You can't model behavior you secretly reject. So if you want to grow, drop the judgment. Replace it with curiosity. And most importantly, give yourself permission to redefine what wealth looks like for you. Maybe it's not yachts and private jets. Maybe it's time, freedom, peace, options. That's still wealth. And it's worth pursuing. Because until you stop seeing money as something those people have, and start seeing it as something you're allowed to hold, you'll always keep it at arm's length. The goal isn't to become someone else. It's to become more fully yourself, with resources. And that starts when you stop demonizing the very thing you say you want. You ever catch yourself saying, "I'll be happy when I pay off this debt, when I make 6 figures, when I buy the house"? It sounds harmless, like a goal, right? But underneath that phrase is a trap most people don't even see. It's the belief that happiness is on the other side of more money. That joy is a finish line you cross once your bank account hits a certain number. But let me ask you something. How many times have you hit a financial milestone and still felt empty? You got the raise, you paid off the credit card, you even splurged on that vacation. And for a moment, yeah, it felt good. But then the high faded and the stress, the pressure, the same restless voice came right back. Okay, what's next? This is what no one tells you. If your happiness is always tied to some future financial win, you'll never feel wealthy, no matter how much you earn. It's like trying to quench your thirst with a mirage. The chase never ends. And that's the lie so many of us are living. Part of this comes from how we're wired. We're raised in a culture that equates money with worth. You get praised for being productive. You get admired for grinding. And when you finally make it, everyone claps. So it's no wonder we start attaching our self-esteem to our financial progress. If I'm doing well with money, I must be doing well in life. But that's dangerous. Because when your self-worth is tied to your net worth, every dip in your finances feels like personal failure. A slow month in your business? Suddenly you're a loser. Unexpected expenses pop up? Now you're irresponsible. Becomes impossible to feel secure. even when you're objectively okay. And let's not forget the people who do everything right: save, invest, hit their goals, and still feel anxious. Because here's the truth: financial security without emotional security is still fear in disguise. It's hoarding money while starving for peace. And that's not wealth. That's survival mode with a cushion. So what's the shift? You've got to break up with the idea that money will complete you. It won't. It can enhance your life, sure. It can open doors, give you options, reduce stress. But it can't fix the parts of you that don't believe you're enough without it. Real wealth starts when you stop waiting for money to validate your life. That doesn't mean you stop striving or growing. It means you start feeling gratitude and ownership now, not just when you arrive. Because if you can't appreciate $1,000, you won't respect $100,000. If you're overwhelmed with $2,000 in bills, $20,000 won't feel any better unless your mindset shifts. Here's a challenge. Start practicing joy where you are. Celebrate small wins. Pay attention to what already makes you feel rich: your freedom, your creativity, your resilience. Stop postponing happiness for a someday that may never look how you expect. Because happiness isn't a reward for being good with money. It's a foundation for becoming someone who handles money well. You know what's sneaky? The quiet, invisible belief that you don't deserve to be wealthy. It doesn't show up loud and obvious. It creeps in when you undercharge for your work, when you hesitate to negotiate, when you say it's fine instead of asking for more. On the surface, it just looks like humility or being easygoing. But deep down, it's a belief rooted in unworthiness, and it's costing you real money. So many people say they want financial freedom, but if you dig just a little deeper, there's this buried thought: people like me don't get rich. And when you believe that, you'll unconsciously push away anything that contradicts it. That raise you didn't ask for? That opportunity you talked yourself out of? That investment you avoided? All of it ties back to the same inner script whispering, "This isn't for you," and let's be real, this stuff doesn't come out of nowhere. Maybe you grew up in a family that struggled, where the message was, "We can't afford that," or "Money doesn't grow on trees." Maybe the idea of being wealthy was painted as unrealistic, even dangerous. You might have been praised for being low maintenance, for not wanting too much, for being the one who made it work with less. Over time, that becomes part of your identity. You become the one who's used to struggling, who knows how to make do, who doesn't need a lot. And slowly, you start shrinking your dreams to match your past, not your potential. This isn't about blaming your upbringing or the people who raised you. They were doing the best they could with what they had. But if you never challenge those emotional blueprints, you'll spend your whole life stuck in someone else's financial story. Here's the painful irony. You can be talented, hardworking, and full of potential, and still sabotage your own success because you don't believe you're worthy of what comes with it. The success, the visibility, the responsibility, the abundance. It can feel overwhelming, even unsafe. So your nervous system does what it's always done. It protects you. Not by helping you rise, but by keeping you small. But let's flip that script. What if you started seeing wealth not as something to earn through struggle, but something you're allowed to receive? Not because you're special, not because you hustled the hardest, but because you're human, and that's enough. Start by catching the ways you minimize yourself around money. The discounts you give without being asked. The times you say it's okay when it's really not. The goals you tone down so you don't disappoint yourself or make others uncomfortable. That's not modesty. That's self-suppression, dressed up as being reasonable. You don't need to become arrogant or greedy. You just need to stop assuming that abundance is for everyone else but you. Because here's the truth. Wealth isn't about deserving. It's about allowing. And the moment you start allowing yourself to want more, to receive more, to hold more, everything begins to shift. This isn't woo-woo. This is rewiring. Because no strategy in the world will work if your identity doesn't let it stick. So, if you've been chasing money without shifting how you see yourself, it's time to pause and ask, what if the real block isn't money? What if it's me not believing I'm allowed to have it? There's a lie that's been quietly wrecking people's financial potential for decades. You've probably heard it. You might have even said it to yourself. It's too late for me to change my finances. At first, it sounds reasonable. Life happened. You made mistakes. You didn't start saving early enough. You're not in your 20s anymore. But behind that sentence isn't realism. It's resignation. It's the voice of someone who's confused, delayed with denied. Let's be honest. Money. Regret hits hard. When you look back at years of poor financial choices, lost time, missed opportunities, it can feel overwhelming. Maybe you drained your savings in a divorce. Maybe you maxed out credit cards when you were young and reckless. Maybe you simply lived paycheck to paycheck for so long that you couldn't even imagine anything different. That weight builds up. And before you know it, you're not just doubting your bank account, you're doubting your future. But here's what no one talks about. Your age or your past doesn't determine your next chapter. Your beliefs do. And as long as you keep telling yourself it's too late, you give up the one thing that could actually change everything: momentum. You ever hear those stories of people who started businesses at 50, or paid off 6 figures in debt in 5 years, or went from broke to financially independent in their 40s or 60s? Those aren't exceptions. They're reminders that the timeline society gave you is made up. Financial transformation doesn't care about your birthday. It cares about your decisions. The deeper truth? Saying it's too late is often a way to avoid the discomfort of starting. Because starting means facing what you've been avoiding. It means looking at the numbers, acknowledging the habits, feeling the shame, and choosing to move anyway. That's not easy, but it is powerful, and let's be real. Time is going to pass either way. 5 years from now, you could be in the exact same place, still telling yourself the same story. Or you could look back and thank yourself for not giving up, for saying, yeah, I'm behind, but I'm not done. This mindset isn't just about inspiration, it's practical. Because when you believe it's too late, you stop learning. You stop asking questions. You stop being curious, and that kills progress. But when you say, I'm ready now, your brain kicks back into gear. Suddenly, you're open to strategies. You start seeing opportunities you used to miss. You act from possibility, not defeat. Start with something small. Track your spending. Open the account. Make the call. Read the book. Hire the coach. Whatever your version of start looks like, just begin. Not because you have all the answers, but because you're done letting your past write your future. You're not too late. You're just on a different path. And maybe, just maybe, all those years of struggle gave you something that can't be bought. Wisdom, grit, and a level of emotional clarity that makes this time different. Because this time you're not chasing money to prove your worth. You're building a future that finally reflects it. It's wild how something as necessary as money is still treated like a dirty secret. Think about it. People will post everything online. Their relationships, their vacations, their most personal thoughts. But ask someone how much they make or how they manage their money, and suddenly it's awkward, silent, off limits. We've been taught that talking about money is rude, tacky, even dangerous. And that unspoken rule? It's costing people their freedom. This culture of silence around money doesn't protect you. It isolates you. It keeps you guessing, doubting, fumbling through financial decisions alone, afraid to ask for help because you don't want to seem ignorant or greedy. You get stuck in this echo chamber of, I should already know this, so you don't reach out. And because everyone else is pretending too, you think you're the only one struggling. Let's break that illusion right now. You're not the only one. Most people are winging it, living paycheck to paycheck, carrying debt they're ashamed to talk about, making big money moves based on vibes and advice from broke friends. But no one says it out loud, so we all suffer in silence, trying to look like we've got it figured out, while internally panicking. You ever wonder why rich families talk about money more openly? It's not just because they have more of it. It's because they understand it's a language, a skill set, something to be passed down, not hidden. They teach their kids how to manage, invest, protect, not because they're better, but because they're talking, and the rest of us, we whisper, or worse, we don't say anything at all. This silence doesn't just block information, it blocks transformation. Because how can you grow if you're afraid to ask questions? How can you level up financially if every conversation feels like walking on eggshells? You can't change what you won't confront, and you won't confront what you feel ashamed to name. But here's the shift. Talking about money isn't rude, it's revolutionary. Every time you speak honestly about your financial reality, what you earn, what you spend, what you're afraid of, you reclaim power. You break the chain. You normalize what should have never been taboo in the first place. Start small. Talk to a friend you trust. Ask questions without apology. Share a win, share a mistake. Open up a space where the goal isn't to impress but to connect. You'll be amazed how quickly the shame dissolves when the silence breaks. And let's be clear. This isn't about oversharing or flaunting. It's about shifting the culture. Because the more we talk, the more we learn. The more we learn, the more we grow. And the more we grow, the less power fear has over our financial future. You don't have to be a money expert to start this conversation. You just have to be willing to stop pretending, to trade performance for honesty, to replace secrecy with community, because staying quiet doesn't make you humble. It keeps you broke. And the silence, it's not golden, it's expensive. You ever feel like having more money might actually make you a worse person? It's a quiet fear, but it's real. So many people don't talk about it, but they feel it. That subtle whisper that says, if I get rich, I might lose myself. Like success might come at the cost of authenticity, relationships, or your soul. And that fear, it's powerful. Powerful enough to make you self-sabotage just when things are starting to go right. It shows up in sneaky ways. You start earning more and suddenly feel uncomfortable spending on yourself. You pull back from investing. You avoid raising your rates or scaling your income because something in you says, don't go too far. That inner ceiling, it's not logic. It's fear dressed up as humility. And it's rooted in one of the deepest money beliefs out there. Money changes people. But let's get honest for a second. Money doesn't change people. It reveals them. It gives you more options, more influence, more visibility. And that can be scary if you're still unsure of who you are without it. If your self-worth is shaky, money will feel like pressure. If your identity is tied to struggle, wealth will feel like betrayal. And so, without realizing it, you keep choosing less. Not because you can't handle more, but because you don't trust who you'll become with it. Maybe you grew up hearing stories of people who got rich and changed. Maybe you watched a friend shift when their lifestyle leveled up. Maybe you saw money tear families apart. And somewhere along the way, your mind made a connection. Success equals disconnection. So now you play it safe. You dim your ambition, you shrink your vision, and you tell yourself, I'm just being grounded. But here's the truth. You can be grounded and abundant. You can be rich and real. You can have more without losing your values, your circle, or your self-respect. It's not either or. It's who you choose to be in the process. Money doesn't make you selfish. Scarcity does. Scarcity makes people hoard, panic, compete. Abundance gives space for generosity, creativity, contribution. When you have more, you're not taking from others. You're creating capacity to help, to heal, to build. The real question isn't, what will money turn me into? It's, what could I do with more if I fully trusted myself? Because the fear of change isn't really about the money. It's about believing you don't have the character to handle it. But what if you do? What if everything you've been through, the setbacks, the struggle, the heartbreak, was preparing you, not just to earn more, but to hold more? With integrity, with vision, with power that heals, not harms. You don't need to fear becoming someone else. You need to become more of who you are, just with resources. So next time that voice says, money will change me, ask it this, or will it finally let me show up as the version of me that's been buried under survival? Because maybe it's not about changing, Maybe it's about returning to yourself with options, with security, with freedom. And that's wealth worth chasing.